I grew up in a quaint, rural town surrounded by farms, abandoned churches, and weathered houses. The community was modest, and finances were tight for most. Property taxes were a mere $1,000 a year, if that. With this backdrop came a cast of eccentric characters, including our amiable yet peculiar neighbor. Things began to look up for my family when my siblings and I were old enough to work. Back when the Hot or Not app was still in vogue, I matched with a girl named Kelly. Our late summer rendezvous extended into September, and now it was early October. Kelly and I were on the hunt for an affordable date idea, given the limited options in our area. We'd already explored hiking trails and dined out, leaving us in search of something new. That's when we took a spontaneous detour down an unfamiliar road. We stumbled upon a quaint restaurant in a remote parking lot. With outdoor seating available, we decided to give it a try. It was a warm, overcast day. After about 45 minutes to an hour, we left, only to find the fog had thickened. Continuing down this desolate road, we passed open fields and farmland, occasionally punctuated by patches of trees. Suddenly, we encountered something unusual, a handcrafted sign pointing to a pumpkin patch. It wasn't a grand billboard, just a wooden picket sign indicating pumpkin picking this way. We veered off onto a dirt driveway, passing the house, and found ourselves in a secluded area surrounded by trees. Nestled between the house and the woods was a sizable pumpkin patch, a genuine farm with over 200 pumpkins strewn about, at least as far as the fog allowed us to see. We parked beside an ancient pickup truck, the only other vehicle in sight. Spotting an older couple on the back deck of the house, we approached them. I mentioned our interest in pumpkin picking, and the old woman welcomed us with a smile, insisting we take any we liked. To our surprise, she declared it was free. The fog created an eerie atmosphere, obscuring our view of the couple. Yet I could discern a gummy smile on the old man's face, which admittedly was a bit off-putting. We thanked them and ventured into the patch. Many pumpkins were small or in poor condition, dampened by the fall. After some searching, we found a robust, healthy pumpkin. Returning to the back deck, we discovered the couple had vanished. Kelly and I exchanged puzzled glances. Since we'd already expressed our gratitude and were told the pumpkins were free, we decided it was time to leave. As I executed a three-point turn on the dirt driveway, a sudden shout pierced the air. Startled, we looked towards the house, where a middle-aged man in a cap was yelling for us to stop. I lowered the window and he demanded to know what we were doing, threatening to call 911. Confused, we tried to explain that the older couple had given us permission. The man vehemently denied their existence, and agitated, we pointed out where they had been sitting just minutes ago. He retrieved the pumpkin, warned us never to return, and retreated to his house. We left bewildered, considering the possibility that it might have been a twisted joke. But the man's reaction was too severe for that. Half-jokingly, I wondered if the older couple were ghosts, a notion that sent shivers down my spine. In the end, we were left with more questions than answers. Intrigued, my siblings later visited the same pumpkin farm. They bought a pumpkin from the same man and inquired about the property. To our surprise, he claimed to live there alone. To this day, it remains a baffling enigma. Were the older couple real or a figment of our imagination? The thought that they might have been ghosts still lingers. As the late October night deepened, a bone-chilling wind rattled the windows, setting an eerie backdrop for the events that would unfold. It was then that I awoke to the persistent buzz of my phone, an insistent message from none other than my best friend Connor. He beckoned me to his house, igniting a spark of curiosity mingled with trepidation. Weekends as a high schooler were typically a flurry of social activity, and this one was no exception. With Connor's parents away, he held the fort with his older sister, Chantel, tasked with keeping a watchful eye. The stage was set for what promised to be an evening of camaraderie and perhaps a touch of mischief. Upon arrival at Connor's, the familiar glow of gaming consoles welcomed us. The staccato clicks of controllers provided a rhythmic accompaniment to our conversation, which meandered from the latest schoolyard gossip to the complexities of teenage crushes. Time seemed to stretch, encapsulated in the digital battlefield of Call of Duty. As the hours waned, Connor broached the subject of a nearby Halloween bash, a gathering of fellow high schoolers. While initially hesitant, I succumbed to the allure of adventure. The prospect of a thrilling escapade beckoned, and with a sense of mischievous determination, we donned our makeshift costumes, 2 security staff shirts, a flimsy disguise for the night's impending adventures. With the clock striking 10:30, fatigue began to creep in, veiling my enthusiasm. I sought out Connor, only to find him engrossed in a conversation with a girl in the dimly lit kitchen corner. An awkward intrusion on my part led to a reluctant inquiry about fetching drinks from the basement. Descending into the subterranean depths, the feeble glow of a lone light bulb cast long, menacing shadows on the cold, concrete floor. Suddenly, a voice, dripping with malevolence, pierced the silence. A haunting boo. I whirled around, heart pounding, to face the foreboding figure shrouded in a black cloak. It was the enigmatic cousin of the party's host. In my befuddled state, I navigated the murky waters of conversation before making a hasty exit. Returning to Connor's darkened abode, a foreboding stillness hung heavy in the air. Chantel's absence, signaled by the vacant driveway, served as a harbinger of my solitude. The house seemed to breathe, a living entity cloaked in an oppressive silence. In the subterranean refuge, my eyelids grew heavy, succumbing to the exhaustion that clung to me. Suddenly, a cacophony shattered the stillness, a thunderous crash from above, jolting me from my slumber. The ensuing silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the ominous creaking of the floorboards overhead. Frantic fingers reached for my phone, a desperate lifeline in the encroaching darkness. I sent a message to Connor, but the void of response was deafening. Anxiety coiled like a serpent within me as the basement door groaned open, a harbinger of impending dread. There, bathed in the feeble light of the stairwell, stood the enigmatic figure from the party. My heart raced, each beat an echoing drum of impending doom. Minutes stretched to eternity as I prayed for his swift departure. Eventually, he turned and ascended, his presence dissipating like a wisp of smoke. With trembling hands, I summoned the courage to dial 911. Trapped in the basement's sealed confines, escape seemed futile, a tantalizing promise that remained agonizingly out of reach. When the police arrived, they apprehended the intruder, a spectral presence whose intentions remained shrouded in sinister enigma. Subsequent investigations revealed a sinister truth. He had followed me home, his malevolent gaze lingering just out of sight. The path he'd taken, cloaked in shadow, led him to Chantel's doorstep, a breach of sanctity that sent shivers down my spine. This harrowing ordeal serves as a haunting reminder, a spectral whisper in the wind, to remain vigilant in the labyrinthine depths of the night. The echoes of that fateful encounter continue to reverberate, a chilling refrain etched into the fabric of my being. It was the heart of October, and the landscape was awash with the fiery hues of autumn, a symphony of oranges and yellows painting the world. My wife, Courtney, and I, a married gay couple of 2 years, saw this as the perfect opportunity to revel in the fall foliage of the Catskill Mountains in New York. Our love for hiking and exploring had taken us to many national parks and renowned hiking destinations across the country, and this marked our 3rd visit to the Catskills. We booked an Airbnb nestled by Overlook Mountain, a beloved hiking hotspot in the area. The Airbnb's owner, a sweet lady named Kathy in her 50s or 60s, had been accommodating and responsive. Our cozy little hideaway exuded rustic charm with wooden walls and floors, bright rugs that covered the wood, and ample space for 2. Beyond, a serene woodland sprawled in all directions. There was even a small converted shed, serving as a clubhouse, complete with a pool table and dartboard. Our hiking adventure led us to the base of Overlook Mountain, where a few fellow enthusiasts were setting off on their own journeys. We exchanged pleasantries and proceeded on our ascent. Resting upon a colossal rock, we marveled at the breathtaking cliff view, taking in the natural splendor. However, an encounter with an enigmatic woman named Melinda, who seemed to be observing us from a distance, stirred an inexplicable sense of discomfort. After an awkward introduction and some small talk, we resumed our hike down, leaving her behind. Oddly, we soon noticed that Melinda had started descending as well, albeit at a slight distance. Her presence raised suspicions, and we decided to halt and wait for her to move on. After a tense standoff, she continued her descent, assuring us with an uneasy okay. Upon our return to the parking area, we promptly headed back to our Airbnb, just a stone's throw away. Exhausted, we took a brief nap before dining at the highly rated Garden Cafe. Night had fallen by the time we returned, and we planned to cozy up and enjoy some movies. The living room was our entertainment hub, boasting a television with access to Netflix. Fatigue washed over us, lulling us into a semi-slumber as we began watching a film. However, the tranquility was abruptly shattered by a series of knocks at the door. The isolation of our woodland surroundings rendered such knocks a cause for alarm. We hesitated, fearing the unknown visitor. There was no peephole to ascertain their identity, and we dared not peek through the closed blinds. I roused Courtney, and we decided against opening the door. It was early, around 9 o'clock, so I texted Kathy to inquire if she was outside. It was then that another set of knocks, this time on a window, startled us. A woman's voice asked if someone was inside. Our apprehension grew as we heard an attempt to lift the window, thankfully locked. Kathy was now calling me, and I answered in hushed tones, explaining the situation. To our bewilderment, she was bewildered herself, denying any knowledge of friends or relatives visiting us. With Kathy's advice ringing in our ears, we resisted the urge to open the door. A persistent voice pleaded for help, accompanied by frantic knocking on another window. It was clear this was no ordinary situation. We began to suspect that Melinda, the woman from our hike, might be behind this eerie intrusion. What if she had followed us back to the Airbnb? Her presence lurking unnoticed? Our paranoia grew. Carefully, I lifted a blind in the pitch-black bedroom, allowing a narrow slit of vision. A man walked past the window, oblivious to my scrutiny. Back in the living room, Courtney and I realized there were multiple individuals outside, an invasion of our secluded sanctuary. With trembling hands, we dialed 911. The police were our lifeline, and we provided them with our address while remaining on the line. A few more knocks echoed, but we did not yield. The unknown figures outside eventually relented, and the knocks ceased. The arrival of the police provided a measure of relief. The officers were compassionate and stayed with us, offering their support. We phoned Kathy once more, explaining our predicament, and she graciously agreed to cancel the rest of our stay. With police escort, we packed our belongings and departed for a nearby motel, where we spent the night under the watchful eye of law enforcement. Given the unsettling circumstances, we opted to cut short our stay and drove home the following day, eager to put the eerie incident behind us. We couldn't shake the feeling that we had narrowly avoided a dangerous encounter with a group intent on targeting vulnerable victims. Since that harrowing experience, we have made a habit of carrying pepper spray during our hikes, a small but essential means of self-defense in the vast, unpredictable wilderness. Thank you for watching Whispering Tales TV. So don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join our community of fellow thrill seekers. Get ready for spine-tingling stories that will keep you up at night. Let the Whispering Tales begin.